state, engineering the government shutdown for martial law. Why did 17 states lose the ability to process EBT cards for 17 hours last month? Why did all the electricity go out during the Super Bowl for longer than a quarter? Why are cities across America going through these temporary, unexplainable, all electricity going for 2 and 3 hours at a time? Let's talk about it. Okay, President Obama, 2012 National Defense Authorization Act. Now, one of the things you gotta understand about Obama being president is that he was put there partly for a lot of reasons, but partly so that they could set up a martial law government without anyone paying attention to it, because it looks like the government is becoming more liberal by having an African-American president. Now, President Obama signed this, the National Defense Authorization Act in 2012, which spends $662 billion for the defense of the United States and its interests abroad. So when you see interests abroad, you automatically think of what? Africa, because of the resources. And you also think of places like Israel and London, which are America's allies. Now, under this act, President Obama can perpetually detain anybody labeled a terrorist without due process, including Americans without congressional oversight. What changed under Obama was that the definition of terrorist is it no longer requires you to be someone who's engaged in violence. You don't have to be violent to be a terrorist anymore. The new definition of terrorist is anyone who speaks out against American interests. So that's me, that would be most of you sitting in this room. Just by virtue of opposing government policy, you can be labeled a terrorist. He can arrest anybody without a trial, and nothing the United States Congress can do about it. Now, he also signed the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order, March 16th of 2012. Now, the interesting thing about March 16th is that was the day Marcus Garvey arrived in America, I believe. But the president can take control of all national resources, including food and water. Under martial law, the president controls the water and the food, and he determines who eats and who doesn't eat, who gets water and who doesn't get water. Also, this executive order eliminates judicial oversight for anything considered national security. In other words, if us meeting right here is considered a national security interest, automatically you lose your due process. Automatically you lose your right to an attorney. Anything that they label as being a national security interest automatically strips it of its constitutional protections. This is what's been going on since Obama got elected. While we've been celebrating, they've been setting up this. The president as emperor. The executive order allows for citizens to be forced to work with or without pay. I want to make sure y'all understand this. President Obama signed an executive order that allows him to make you work without getting paid if there's ever a national disaster or martial law, which can be defined as anything he labels it to be. So when we talk about slavery, you got to look at slavery under martial law. It also allows the Secretary of Defense to control all activity on water. They can stop anybody from floating anything. They can stop anybody from riding a boat. They can stop anybody from transporting resources. Under martial law or national security, the Secretary of Commerce control what? All building materials, concrete, metal, bronze, granite, anything used to build can be confiscated by the Secretary of Commerce. Now check this out. The Secretary of Transportation takes control over all motor vehicles. It's already been stated that in a national security epidemic or a martial law situation, they will not allow you to drive on the street. You will not be allowed to use an automobile or a motorcycle. Because the whole purpose of martial law is to do what? Control your movement. So if you're driving, we can't control your movement. So the first thing they want to do is dictate that you not travel at all unless it's by foot. The Secretary of Agriculture controls all food, all farms, and all livestock. The Secretary of Health will control the hospital, health services, and any supplies. That's important too. Why? Because in a national disaster martial law situation, they can refuse you service at the hospital. They can simply turn you and your children away. The Secretary of Energy will control our energy supplies. So that extends to what? Laptops, cell phones, anything that requires electricity to function. Which is why I often say we should be careful not to put our entire movement on the internet. Some of us, our newspapers are totally electronic. Our books are totally electronic. Our videos are totally electronic. Some of us, most of us in this room, if you lost the ability to access the phone book in your cell phone or the email list on your Yahoo or Google account, how would you get in contact with people you need to contact? Do you have a separate on-paper contact list like we used to do before the internet came upon us? If you don't have that, you need to do that. If that means you got to take out your cell phone and write down everybody's name and number, you better have backup. Because they're hoping you don't have backup. So once they hit that button and suspend all internet activity, you can't even call your mother because you never memorized her phone number. Make sure you have a backup. And that's why I appreciate the Nation of Islam, because the final call is still in paper. I mean, you can read it online, but it's still in paper. And that's why I got a little bit of respect for the organizing strategy of the Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't see the watchtower being sent through an ebook. They still out on the street because they want to make sure nobody has control over their communications. We have to go back to printed media. We have to go back to printed media, because I don't care how well developed your online newspaper is, if they shut it down, won't nobody be able to access it. You saw the movie Enemy of the State. You saw the movie The Siege, okay? It's all about what? The more you use technology, the more they can control you. Every time you use your MAC card, that automatically goes up to a satellite and they know where you were. Okay, every purchase you made, unless it's with cash, is electronically transmitted. That's why a lot of stop-and-go Chinese corner stores don't use credit cards at all. They have no record of how much money they're making, and because of that, they can never ascertain whether or not they should be paying taxes. That's why a lot of foreign nationals do that. They don't even use debit. They don't have debit. It's all cash. Nothing in this store can be monitored from the satellite unless they came in and bugged it. We got to go back to the same strategy. Now check this out. Who really runs America? Now, according to the United States Constitution, we have a tripartite government. Who makes the laws? The Congress, which has a Senate and a House of Representatives. According to the Constitution, the only body that should be making laws in America is the U.S. Senate, Congress, House of Representatives. The Supreme Court's job is to do what? Interpret the laws to make sure they don't violate the Constitution. The President's job is to do what? Execute. He's the executive branch. Obama is not supposed to make laws. Bush is not supposed to make laws. Clinton was not supposed to make laws. But how about they make more laws than Congress does? It's called the executive order, which allows them to totally trump the legislative process and make any law they want. Now, here's the interesting thing. For those of you who believe you live in a democracy, we know that according to the Patriot Act, in the Obama executive orders, that under a national emergency, it is the National Security Council that takes control of the country. But here's the interesting thing about the National Security Council. Only 2 members are chosen allegedly by the people. Only 2 members are chosen allegedly by the people. And I'm saying allegedly because you don't even choose them either. Okay? But at least that's what they feed. So you have the president and the vice president. Now these are the people who control this country in the event of national security or martial law. You choose the president and the vice president, allegedly, because we know we don't even choose them. But look who else is on this list. Secretary of State. That's an appointment. You know what was also interesting? How Hillary Clinton resigned. Hillary. as Secretary of State. And then Obama appointed a skull and bones man, John Kerry, to replace Hillary, who's a man he didn't even get along with, okay? Because he don't make no decisions. Then you have Secretary of Treasury, and we all know what? That the president is given 3 names from which he selects one to be the Secretary of the Treasury. He does not have free will to select the Secretary of the Treasury because the U.S. Treasury is not a publicly owned institution. The Federal Reserve is not a publicly owned institution. The Federal Reserve is 9 to 11 German Jewish private banks who print America's money. And the same banks that print the money are the same banks that finance Adolf Hitler's extermination campaign of the Jews. Okay? Then you have the Secretary of Defense, not elected. Assistant to the President for National Security, not elected. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, not elected. Director of National Intelligence, Chief of Staff to the President, Counsel to the President, and Assistant to the President on Economic Policy. These are the people who control the country under emergency. None of them are elected. So how can you say you live in a democracy? Furthermore, if you say you live in a democracy, why can't you find the word "for me" in the United States Constitution? The word democracy does not appear anywhere in the United States Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the 50 state constitutions. Look at the Constitution of Virginia. Look at the Constitution of North Carolina. The word democracy is not there. This is a republic. The rule of law made by the few. That's all it ever was. Even George Washington's so-called Revolutionary War with Great Britain was a staged event. America did not win. George Washington was a master mason. There was simply an agreement made that they would give the illusion that the colonies won the war so that they could keep control over both continents. And you can research that. There was no victory. But here's the interesting thing. The Attorney General isn't even allowed to come to these meetings unless he's invited. Nobody from the Supreme Court is on the National Security Council. Nobody from Congress, not one of the 100 senators, not one of the nearly 500 reps are allowed at that meeting. America is as much a dictatorship as any country it claims to be fighting. You simply have the illusion of a democracy. You have to wake up and see the matrix.